Hey guys, this is Mitch with FinePoint CGI, and today we're going to talk about export template, more specifically the Windows export template. And we're going to be talking about optimization and how you can optimize your export template to make your game as small and as fast as humanly possible. And if you haven't seen my tutorial on how to compile Godot from source, you should go ahead and check that one out. I'll have a link in the description below and also in a little pop-up here in the upper right-hand corner. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand is what is an export template? Well, an export template is a way for Godot to know what it needs to include inside of your project when it compiles it. Now, this is an awesome way to allow you to optimize your build size. So you can do things like remove or strip out unused functions. You can use specific compiler flags that will help decrease your build size. And it'll also allow you to do things like ripping out your 3D engine if you don't want a 3D engine. For instance, if you're making an app or a 2D game, you don't need the whole 3D engine. So it allows you to completely rip that out. It also allows you to rip out, unused GUI nodes and really just pulling out all of your unwanted modules that you have. For instance, if you don't need like AR kit or things like that, you can pull those out and it'll optimize for, for size. And you can also optimize, more for speed. You can do things where you can say optimize is equal to speed, right? And that will allow it to optimize more for speed than for size. So what it also allows you to do is add custom modules, things like PhysX or Fmod, or if you have your own library that you're trying to access, like for instance, if you're doing like your own AI or something like that, it might be super useful to have your own module that's written in C++ over top of being written in GD script, which is generally slower than a compiled C++ would be. And finally, it allows you to encrypt your code. You can actually go ahead and encrypt all of your scripts with a 256-bit AES key, and that will allow all of your scripts not be stored in plain text. So that way some person can't just go in and change your scripts on the fly, which can affect your game. This can really be super useful to, further the security of your project. Now, we're not going to cover all of what we just discussed inside of this video, but we are going to cover creating a Windows export template. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download the Godot source code. Now, I do have a link to it in the description below. And once you have it downloaded, go ahead and extract it. And what you're going to see is you're going to see Godot 3.23 stable. Now you can do this with Godot 4.0 and that's fine, but you do need to be sure that it is the Godot version that you're working with. So if you need to know that, you can just open up Godot and you'll see here, right here, is the version of Godot that I'm using. Okay. So you'll need to make sure that you have the correct version of Godot or else it will not work. So now, if you double click on this, you'll see that you have your Godot source code. If you click up here, type CMD, we're going to open up a command prompt here. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to make sure we have Scons installed. Now, previously in a different tutorial, I had you guys go out and download it and do all that happy jazz to like copy it into the correct directory and all that stuff. But I did find a better way now. So what I've found is if you come in here and type Python -m pip install scons, that's going to go ahead and download and install Scons globally on your machine. So now you can just access Scons by typing Scons. So you'll see we successfully installed it. So now we can type in Scons and you'll see that it'll start reading the Scons script files. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop this because I don't need it. And if you ever want to stop a build, it's just Control C and that will stop your build. So first thing we need to talk about is how to build your export template. So we'll type Scons platform is equal to Windows tools is equal to no. Target is equal to release. Space bits is equal to 64. So what does this command do? Well, we're saying Scons, which is the program. We're saying platform is Windows, so we want to target Windows. Tools is equal to no. So this is a very important switch here. So what this is saying is, hey, I don't want you to compile the editor with this, right? Because you don't want to, you know, bloat your application with the editor. It's an unnecessary add-on to your project, if that makes sense. Target is release, so you can actually change this to like release underscore debug. And what that would do is it would make it a debug release. Or if you just do release, it'll rip all the debug code out. So it will further make your project a little bit smaller. And then bits 64, do you want a 64-bit or a 32-bit application? If you type -J and then space 8, that will give you all as many, like you can do 1 through as many as you want, but the higher the number, the more cores it's going to take up. So you'll notice that if you do it without a J, it'll be a lot slower. And you'll want to know how many cores you have in your machine. Now, in my case, I have 6. So I will say 6. So let's go ahead and let that run. And I will see you guys in a little bit. Okay, so now that it's completed, you can see here it says that you have a linking program right here in bin Godot Windows OPT 64EXE. They did a couple of other static linking libraries, and it tells you where they put those. You don't really have to worry about that. But the main one that you have to worry about is this bin Godot. So if we go out to that location and we go bin Godot 64, you'll see that that's the one that we're looking for. So we can do one of two things now. If we open up a file browser and we go to C, users, whoops, not public, your name, we go to app data, roaming, Godot, templates, and then whatever your version number is. In this case, we don't have one. This is where you can actually replace your global export templates inside of Godot. So if you were to say, I only want to do a 2D game, or I only want to do 2D games, or if I wanted to add a module or extend the Godot game engine, this would be a good way to create those dynamic libraries in this template. So you just put it in here and you rename this to Windows underscore 64 underscore release.exe. Actually, I think it will have the exe, so I believe that's spelled correctly. So once you've renamed it, you can just copy it, paste it in here, and now when Godot boots up, it will automatically figure this out and pull this in. And when any time it builds, it will build using this. Now, if you want to use this export template as a temporary export, I'll show you how to do that. If you open up Godot here, and let's go ahead and open up, I don't know, my SQLite demo, right? If you guys remember from one of my previous tutorials. All right, once we have it open, what you can do is you can go into your project, export, open up your presets. Let's add a Windows desktop, and you can see here, this little section here called custom template. Now, in this case, we have a release custom template, so we'll click on that, and then we navigate to our location. So what I like to do is I like to navigate to it like this, Control C, and then Control V, enter, and you'll see here that it comes up with all of the options you have here. So we'll go ahead and select this, open. And now, from now on, it will use this when you export your project. So I should be able to just export, and it will automatically attempt to export. Now, it's going to export really fast because I don't have, I mean, it's an empty scene, you can see here. But that's the gist of how you guys use it. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about optimization, which is probably the most important part of why you would want to use a build template in the first place, right? So if we open up our command prompt here and we look at some of the options we have here. So if we type in, let's say, for instance, we don't want to have a 3D engine. We could say Scons P is equal to Windows because we want it to still be Windows, right? P is short for platform. Target is equal to release. Tools is equal to no. And disable 3D is equal to yes. What that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and disable 3D from existing inside of Godot. So if we were to run this, it will cut down your binary size by probably around 30%. I'm going to go ahead and run it so I can show you. And I will be right back. Okay, so now that you see that we have finished our compiling, if we go back into our bin folder, you'll notice that we have another Windows OPT64. You'll notice that this is 30 megabytes and this is 26 megabytes. Now I know that that doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a massive shrinking in size. That's a full 4 megabytes in size. So that's the power of stripping and optimizing for size. So that cuts our executable size by about 15%, which is super useful. So what else can we pull out of here, right? Well, so you can come in here and type in scons --help. And what that will do is it will read their scons file and it'll show you a list of all the modules that you can enable and disable. So for instance, do you need WebSockets? Do you need X atlases? Do you need WebP, WebAM, Voltris? Do you need visual scripting? You know, if you don't need a lot of these things, you could pull out all of this code and it's going to really reduce the size of your project. For instance, here's mono support right here. Here's mobile VR support. Here's GD native support. So obviously you would probably want this one, but that's something that you can remove and it will reduce the size of your executable. You can get rid of like etc. You can get rid of DDS, CCTT, CSG, camera support, bullet. If you don't need any bullet physics, if you're not doing that style of game, you can literally just rip that out and it will reduce the size of your executable. Now, what if I want to remove a bunch of things, right? If I don't want a large sum of these things, what do I need to put in here to remove these assets? Well, what I can do is you could do one of two things. You can either, if I scroll all the way down, it's a pretty big list. So if I put this back up, disable 3D is yes, right? Well, what if I wanted to keep 3D, right? But I didn't want a physics engine, okay? So what I can do is I can say module underscore bullet underscore enabled is equal to no. And what that'll do is it'll pull out the bullet physics engine. And I can do that with any module. So I could say module underscore camera underscore enabled is equal to no. And what that will do is that will pull out that module. So now you can no longer have a camera inside of Godot. Now, alternatively, if you don't want to do that, right, what you can do is you can create what's called a custom Python file to handle this. So if we go back to our project root, so what we can do is we can clear all this out because I don't need it right now at least. And I'm gonna cd dot dot and then code dot. What that's gonna do is it's gonna open VS Code in that folder. So you can see now I can see my Godot. with all my Python modules and things like that. What I can do is I can right click here, new file, call it custom.py, and then this will allow me to tell Godot what I want it to compile with. So I'm not going to go through all the options, and I'm going to leave in a link in a description below that's going to give you a Godot bundle options generator. There's actually something that was created. I'll bring this over here for you real quick. So what it does is it allows you to just say like, oh, you know, I don't need bullet physics. I don't need AR kit, right? I don't need, you know, mini zip if I don't want to, you know, zip stuff. You know, I don't need advanced GUI behaviors or 3D stuff. You know, like I don't need mobile VR, HDR, right? Because I'm doing a 2D engine. So what do I need that for, right? You know, I don't need visual scripting. I don't need WebM or WebP or Vobis. And you can see here, it actually tells you what it is. Required to play WebM VP8 videos with sound and video player. So if you're not using that module, rip it out. You don't need it. And all it's doing is taking up additional space. So if I'm not doing an app that requires the internet, I can just rip out the network discovery model, right? I can rip out like regex if I don't want to use regex. If I don't want to use videos in the video player here, I can pull that out. So it's super useful to pull out things that you don't need inside of Godot, right? And you really can pull a lot out. I mean, it is extremely flexible in what you can create here. So if I copy this and I paste it in here and I save this, right? And then I go ahead and I go back to my command prompt, do the same command I did earlier, which actually I could probably just hit up to do that. If I go back to my original command, which is where I do my target release J6, and I run that, and I'll be right back because it's going to take a minute. But you'll see that the compiled library is much smaller than what it was when we started this, because we ripped all of those features out of Godot because we don't need them. So I'll be right back and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So one of the things that you're going to want to be aware of, just in case, is some modules are necessary. So as you're doing this exclusion file, you may run into compiler errors that you'll have to back out. So you just hit Control-C to back out, and then you just go through and find either the modules that it's looking for and enable them, or you need to re-add the module that it was removed that's breaking it. So in this case, you can see here, it's blowing up because it's looking for dynamic font, which means somewhere in here, I've ripped something out that probably should not have been ripped out. So I'm going to go ahead and debug this for a second. And the beauty of this little thing here is I can actually go ahead and just look at the ones that I've ripped out, and I can see if there's something that I ripped out that I wasn't supposed to. For instance, required to render dynamic fonts. So free type was probably the thing that I've ripped out that's unnecessary, or that's necessary. You can see dynamic font is being needed here. So let's go ahead and put that back in. So if we do free type and bring that in, save it, and then hit Control X and Control C, you'll see it will rip all that out and try it again. And I will be right back as it tries to compile once again. All right, it finally finished compiling, and if I go out to my bin folder, you'll notice that it cut out almost 8 megabytes in size. Now, that's probably about a 20% decrease in size, and that's huge, especially when you are making a simple small game or a small application that needs to run on a device that doesn't have a lot of storage. Now finally, one last really cool thing that you can do is you can go ahead and compile with link time optimization. Now, this is something that you only want to do with your release build, but this is something that's super useful with making your application just that much faster and just that much smaller. So if I go ahead and open this up and I do Scons, space, P is equal to Windows, space, target is equal to release, because like I said, you don't want to do this in dev. Tools is equal to no, because you don't want the, you're not compiling Godot itself, right? You're just compiling the export template. Use underscore LTO, which is link time optimization, is equal to yes. Now, what this will do is it will take forever to compile. I am not joking. But it strips a lot of code out of your project, and it makes it way more efficient and way better in terms of runtime performance. So you really should use this for your final compile. So if we go ahead and run that, and I will be back because it's going to take a long time to compile. So I will be back. Hey guys, just as a side note, if you paid attention earlier, I actually forgot to hit the -J. And you can see here, looking at my CPU utilization, you can see I'm utilizing only about 20% of my system. So I'm going to stress this again. Don't forget to do -J and then put in your core count, because it will really slow down your compile time. I've been compiling for a long time because I forgot to do this. So just as a side note. All right, so now that it's finished, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our bin folder here, and we are going to open it up. Here's our new export template for Windows. You can see it is now down to 21.7 megabytes, which is way smaller than what it was when we first started, which was probably somewhere around 31 to 32 megabytes. So that is a massive drop in size. And it is also more efficient and honestly just generally faster than what we had before when we first started this whole project. So that's all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you dislike this video, go ahead and hit that dislike button, because I make these videos for you guys and I want to know what you guys like and dislike. And you know, if you guys have a suggestion, throw them in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to get to them and talk to you guys and, you know, really interact with you guys, because my job is to make content that you guys enjoy. Now, for my next video that I'm going to be putting out will be a export template for the web using EMCC, which is a JavaScript cross compiler using C++. And the reason why I'm doing that is because somebody left a comment. So if you guys have ideas, let me know and I'll be more than happy to get to them. So I want to say thank you again for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks.